Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce another episode of Tales of Giving, my co host, here is a quote passage just for this episode. When Zarathustra was 30 years old, he left his home and the lake of his home and went into the mountains. Here he had the enjoyment of his spirit and his solitude, and he did not weary of it for 10 years. But at last his heart turned, and one morning he rose with the dawn, stepped before the sun, and spoke to it thus: Great star, what would your happiness be if you had not those for whom you shine? You have come up here to my cave for 10 years. You would have grown weary of your light and of this journey without me, my eagle and my serpent. But we waited for you every morning, took from you your superfluity, and blessed you for it. Behold, I am weary of my wisdom, like a bee that has gathered too much honey. I need hands outstretched, outstretched to take it. I should like to give it away and distribute it until the wise among men have again become happy in their folly, and the poor happy in their wealth. I'm joined by my co-host today, Demetri Stakias, who has been collecting honey like a bee with hands outstretched to take, hands outstretched for you to take a hold of his thorns for hugs. Author of an upcoming book, Hugging Thorns, friend of the Culture Matters podcast, mentor, advisor, problem solver, entrepreneur, supporter of 30 Days of Thought, Culture Matters. Hold on, I got a few more. This should be the longest intro so far at 1,000 some odd episodes. Thank you for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. And next time, I'm just going to read the rest of the book.
Well, thank you for having me back on the show. It's been a long few hours. So yeah, some reflections on having collected a lot of honey over 45 years.
And happy birthday today as of the recording.
Thank you. Um, yeah, may you all have my 45 years and double them at least once, right? And hopefully three times when we get there to the future. Um, a lot of times I think honey doesn't go stale, but information and knowledge does. So honey is also wisdom and it's timeless. So there's some life lessons that are always going to be applicable, regardless of the circumstances, the conditions, or even the technologies of the day. That's why I'm curious when people talk about like time capsules and, if there was some frozen person out in the Alps and then they became alive, like, would they make it in today's time? And I'm thinking they would conquer because they wouldn't have any distractions. They would just look at what's needed and do it. We're pretty deliberate and we see everything from every point of view except what can, create a result. And sometimes it's messy and sometimes it's not perfect. And sometimes we can go back and be the Monday morning quarterback forever. And that loses a lot of, forward progress, just ruminating and deliberating. So having spent time on those sidelines of life, you realize you're better off being the man in the arena or the woman in the arena and get dirty, get injured, get knocked down or broken. I mean, you mentioned yesterday on the show you broke your arm. You still wrote, you still communicated and connected, right? It didn't pull it might have pulled you down, but it didn't pull you off.
Hmm. Wow.
So so when I think about hugging thorns, like the upcoming book, it's about embracing those challenges that would normally kill people. Some of the harshest, most vicious things that we either endure or placed upon us, or perhaps it's our calling to have those challenges. Some people who are of faith believe in predestination, and that's kind of how I grew up. That every page of your story is already written. So if somebody feels a clairvoyance, a deja vu moment, then you're like, wait, am I on that right path? And what's meant for me? And other times we hold on to thorns we don't need to hold on to, thinking that it's a lifelong obligation, a relationship,
Hmm.
a marriage, a job, a career. We're so wrapped up our identities into, ourselves. When the first question you're asked is beyond just the superficial, how are you, is what do you do? I like to know who you are. When I meet you, it doesn't really matter what you do for money and economic value. It's, can I talk to you for 3 or 4 hours and just enjoy and grow from that interaction? So those are the valuable um, serotonin building experiences that I value more than stuff. Stuff does get you there, but those quiet moments of reflection with someone who has wisdom or someone who can share something with you, or even share kindness and compassion. That hospitality, that's the real Facebook. That's not the imaged reality, the mirrored falsehoods that we face. And again, not to be dark, but it's isolating. In times of when people need more connection than other ever, they're diving deeper into the black holes of seeking dopamine through likes and comments and, oh, how come you didn't see my new event online or my new happy thing online? Well, I don't have an Instagram anymore. It got suspended and I can reactivate it, but I don't think I have a need for it.
Hmm.
But there's still ways to contact me. There's still ways to connect. People think that if you don't have 10 different outlets to be connected, that you're not plugged in. But, having been a student of the movie The Matrix, at least the first one, before it got watered down into a different story, this idea of choosing the red pill and the blue pill, it's kind of seems binary, but I think it's very elemental in our journey. And I equate it very much with thorns. We can choose that very easy road that seems very calm and good and 10-lane highway and there's no traffic. But where does that road lead? It may lead to nowhere. It might just run out of road because they spent so much money developing those 8 lanes. But the thorny road, the road less traveled, the roads of of Thoreau and I'm called in the words of like I think I don't know if it was David Muir who says basically like nature is calling and I must go. So
Hmm.
I need to be called into new areas, not the same old areas that others say are great, but walking, walking sometimes in the dark, like I did a couple of days ago when the Uber dropped me off in the wrong place at Liberty State Park, and I walked for 2 miles in the dark. And
Oh my.
well, actually, it was more oh dear, and it was four of them, and they were jumping in the dark, and I'm like, I'm so happy to see deer as opposed to wild humans. So, but I made it to the car and I made it home. And New York is quite an adventure for an elf when you're dressed up. It's something that's not your common clothes. But in a place of uniqueness, it's really hard to stand out. In a place like New York, you're walking around in holiday season like an elf, they think you're going to work
Hmm.
instead of bringing joy.
What was the inspiration behind the book?
The book is my own journey. Some really, really dark, like chapters of loss, of divorce, of near death experiences, of questioning who you are and soldiering on. and never giving up, knowing that there is still a purpose and a light within all of us to carry on. And I want to inspire others with this book, as it's nearing completion, to hug those thorns in your life and to release the ones that no longer serve you. So keep reassessing what your priorities are, and be very, very real about it. Don't just say it as another topic, another thing to listen to and ignore, but truly just sit with yourself for at least a minute or a few if you can daily and say, okay, what really matters to me in my life, and what can I build around that, and what can I drop off? What weight do I not need to carry anymore? You've done favors for a friend, and now it's a heavy obligation and it's burdening you. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to prune back those gardens so that your walkway can be clear. Because even though roses and thorns are beautiful, if they overgrow, you're going to keep walking, getting scratched and cut. And the last thing you want is to not embrace new thorns, because the ones that you carry are too heavy and thorny. And one thing that I really noticed when it comes to roses, just as a gardener, is the ones that are the most beautiful and uh, for sale, they're not fragrant. The ones that are thorniest, the ones with the spotted leaves, the ones that have different layers of petals, they're the most fragrant and not pretty. But again, we take them in with different senses. And the same thing with our thorns. A lot of times we think, oh, that hurts. And Mellencamp say hurts so good because it could be good for you. But we also need to not be sadistic and chase pain as if it's like, oh, look,
Mm.
my level of pain exceeds yours. And I don't want us to be just two old men sitting in the park complaining about knee and hip issues and who had more surgeries and more setbacks. But I want to hear more about how you overcame those setbacks, and that hero's journey is so epic in all our tales. And not that I need to be my own hero, but you have to be, right? Because no one's there to save you. They can inspire you, they can encourage you, and friends will always be your allies, but they want to see you get up. I think that's what would inspire people the most, is when you've overcome the thorny challenges of life with dignity and grace, without complaining, and mentioning that it was a struggle you didn't think you would overcome, but perhaps there was a hope, faith, love, something that carried you, or someone that walked with you in that journey. And you give thanks to them, because that's the worst thing, is somebody helped you carry you somewhere and you never acknowledge them. It's you're shortchanging your own success by not thanking anyone for where you got. So I owe a lot to my upbringing, my culture, my parents, my grandparents, for shaping me and sometimes for breaking me. But it forges you into a new you. When a witty remark or a few words can break you or shape you, that's up to you. And a lot of times we think it's about a circumstance, but it's our mirror to those circumstances that shines through. So these are heavy concepts, but as we evolve through that next year and heading into this holiday season, we're gonna have to face people that maybe we don't normally talk to, and we're gonna have to smile through it all. And we're gonna have to raise a glass, whether it be of real champagne or apple juice, and then and celebrate with these people, right? Or at least for a moment, and then we can turn around and walk away. But if you don't get along with your brother or sister, and your parents invite you to come over, just get along for a day. You can save those witty remarks for the journal. Um, Sometimes hugging thorns is swallowing your pride, and and those ego traps that we all fall into, of judgment, when we weren't created to judge. We were created to observe, discern. Judgment is supposed to be meant for the creator. Um, I mean, even in our justice system. I'm going to go tomorrow to the circus. I'm not even going to call it a justice system anymore. But I'm going to say, hey, for the next episode of the circus, let's see what happens. Let's see if things are just, or if I went there to hug the wrong thorns. Right. So if I if I realize that again, then I've grown in that it can be a cautionary tale to others on how to behave, on what to avoid in terms of the people you choose to bring into your life. Because ultimately, it's my choice that I brought tenants into my building, that I'm here to save others and I couldn't save myself. So that's very telling. And sometimes I adopt other people's thorns as my own. So they have circumstance, they have uh, things that make you feel empathetic, and you feel for their circumstances of injustice, wrongdoing, and someone never believing them, and then you take a chance on people who are the scorpions, and you're just the frog trying to carry them to their next destination, thinking they have no interest in harming you, but it's who they are. And so a lot of times when I go over each component of the outline, I shared the outline with you, and feel free to ask any questions from that outline if you'd like to. It can help the listeners learn more about where the story is going.
The wheel of life, is that is that a metaphor?
It's a concept that's used a lot in like NLP circles of meaning these different quadrants. Like some would look at it like finances, relationships, purpose. Um, in this wheel, it's like how hard do you want to embrace these challenges so that you can grow? How hard do you want to face the truth that you need to not go out to eat as often if money's a little tight? You know, that it worked for previous generation, it could work for us in hard times in order to be strong again. And the same thing if in your career you're not growing, what skills can you learn? How can you be of greater value to your employer or to new employers or even create a side gig? Because right now we have a holiday season forming, there are going to be side gigs available, so sometimes we have to humble ourselves and pick up a delivery or pick up a hammer and a paintbrush. And I know it's not office work, but I tell plenty of tenants who have worked in offices, hey, if you're a little slow this month, just work here and work there, and it's all good. Like I would respect you even more if you did what it took to provide for yourself and your family, as opposed to saying this is all I am and this is all I do. Well, those words by themselves are limiting words, which I've used on myself. So when I hear them from others now, I shake my head saying, "There's a better way." So when I look at that wheel, and it's something we need to reevaluate probably more regularly. And now that I'm actually writing about it, it's probably going to be a lesson to me to actually go through these exercises. So, especially on a day like your birthday, it's almost to me like it's almost like New Year's Eve, where you're like, okay, here's the year in review. What went well, what didn't go well, and what will we do better for next? What are we truly committed to? So that when I open this next year, I'm not horrified that I didn't do the work.
Um, which spoke of the wheel has taught you the biggest lesson in the last year?
Ugh, I would say the finances. I would think this idea of circumstances within and with outside your control that put a severe squeeze on you, and then sometimes there's more month than money, and sometimes there's more opportunities than the time that you need to use to commit to them. So having these Sophie's choices with the roads that you want to take at a time when there's only so many choices to make and only so much time to make them. Um, when someone like me hyper focuses on something, you really want it to succeed. Ideas like children. I mean, like I don't want them to be abandoned. I think sometimes I've left them to the side of the road for too long, and I say, wait, they deserve better. So I start looking at the things that I've neglected and saying, okay, well, let's put more attention in that. Let's see how we can improve it. And the one element that I urge everyone to start doing is to introduce self compassion into your life. Um, Go ahead.
Pat, Pat, what if any relationship does that have with the letting go of unhealthy habits?
Well, first, I mean, it's facing facts that these habits, while perhaps numbing, like, again, this holiday season, you were going to raise a drink to celebrate, but would you, and maybe the second one too, but perhaps the third one is a habit for me. Perhaps the fourth one is alcoholism in growing, and the fifth one is you should be minding your words that come out after this drink. So you know what I mean, like, because you could undo a relationship, you could undo your business in one evening, right? You could destroy your marriage. You could you could share the ugliest secret that you've been trusted with because you couldn't control your mouth, right? And if you can't control the wheel, it's completely game over. And if it's your life that ends, that's sad. But if it's somebody else's, it's truly tragic. So again, those choices this holiday season, it's like I want to sound like I'm like Jacob Marley talking to the Ebenezer Scrooges of the world. You're like, listen, there is a better way. It's good to be miserly, it's good to be thrifty, but this time of year also be generous to others. People just came out of these food whatever emergencies, and if you had a really good year, do something of a cause that's worthy. And it doesn't always have to be money. It could just be giving mentorship. There's plenty of young kids who don't have parents, and if you go to places like the Beckett Center and just mentor for the day, or even give donations, like not I know it's a tax write-off, and that's awesome, and there's places for that as a Deloitte person to classify them as wonderful deductions, but it's the impact you give when you reinvest in your community. You're making that wheel smoother, because like a lot of people are like, oh, on a finance I'm a 10, but societal wise we're a 3. Well, hopefully if we all did a little something, all gave a little compassion, kindness to someone, or even giving people books. Right? If someone reads, I just ask people sometimes, hey, do you read? Yeah. I said, well, would you read this? Yeah, I would read it. Okay, cool. So I give it to them. And those books cost me $5 to $10 because I buy them used. I think that's better than buying someone a cup of coffee.
Yeah, what a nice gesture.
I mean, most coffee is horrible. I mean, I give you a book. I don't know if you read it, but even if you read a page, it might add to your
Oh,
tapestry, right? Like,
yeah, read 4, 5.
there we go. I mean, what is your like habit when it comes to reading?
Um, I I would love to spend the next hour sharing that, but I feel as though it would be a thorn in the side of this book opportunities ass because I really want, at the back of 30 Days of Thought, it said, don't it's the R in matters, and it's responsibility. Don't expect to be hugged first. Take the initiative and love with a hug. So
Well,
I'd like to know the balance between ambition and contentment. Is that where would do you see the pendulum or the seesaw being? I guess the different rotations of the seesaw or the pendulum, and if you can just explain your view of each, because right it moves. The seesaw moves for there to be a cooperative meaning or collective meaning. There would be a game versus boring or disrespectful. Like right, if we're on a seesaw and I'm not jumping up with you, then you're just trying, and I can't. So and the pendulum swings, or
so I look at it
if
like this.
yeah,
So if I used to feel, okay, be ambitious in order to become content. Now I'm thinking be content in order to be ambitious. So meaning I am happy and grateful for everything I have and have more than enough, but I welcome more and I welcome more. So it's that language we tell ourselves, where contentment is being able to sit here with you right now in this moment, being fully appreciative for everything that we're we're about to kind of share with ourselves and with the audience. The ambition is next time we're here, I want to have more wins, not to share, but to know that that accomplishment was made, that impact was carried.
Well, I don't choose my books; they choose me. Um,
So you're a superconductor now. You're a true conduit for the right kind of information. You've cleaned the interference out, right? You're not reading comic books or the fictional tale of the day. And if you're reading classic literature, it's the heavy duty stuff. It's not Mark Twain.
I think when I'm given a book, is there's no greater feeling. Recently I was given a book by a gentleman at a mastermind and a great friend. I have this series on the Culture Runners podcast, Tales of Giving. He gave me a book, and maybe subconsciously, we would have never had the collective agreement to do a series on a podcast had that not occurred. It's like my love language is accepting the opportunity to get inside of a book. In this season, there, I'm for the, I would say I'm really attempting an ardent stand around. Can I get through Plato? Can I get through Aristotle, Upanishads? Because Arthur Schopenhauer told me stop everything, and he told me in the beginning of the world as will an idea that I was not. I had to put the book back down if I didn't catch up with the prerequisites, and I'm stressed, sweating. So then my best buddies all give me these books to read, and I'm thinking,
So are you saying that if you're given too many books, this is like giving a fat kid too many cakes?
well, hey, listen. Um, my curiosity here is in writing this book. Are there things that you went in? Are there presuppositions you went in you held before that had changed throughout?
I think it was an exercise in like opening myself up even further.
Right.
So a lot of times you think that you're open. We always say, "Oh, it's great, so great to be open." How much? How much of your inner heart do you want to share? How much of the blood, the guts, and the gore do you want out there? And all that is relevant to the audience, but you also want to share a tale, and you want to be on mission. So what I've learned from this journey is that it's okay to go with it. It's okay to face the scariest parts of yourself that you thought were buried and done with and unearth them almost like an archaeologist. Not to relive the past, but to kind of learn from it and say, okay, if I had a moment with a teenager who's facing the crossroads of life, what would I tell them? If I had 5 minutes of truly open listening from that person, and I could just espouse decades of struggle and trial and say, look, these 5 minutes could save you 5 years of struggle. Would you be willing to listen? Or would you be willing to read 5 pages of this book if it saved you just as much heartache and pain? And so if that's the gift I can give the world, then I'm happy to continue writing this book and pulling stuff from me that is like unsightly, right? Bringing that unconscious conscious, as Jung would say. Um, again, not everything, not to spill your whole life story, because that's a biography and there's more to be written. There's more accomplishments to be had. I didn't think that it would be appropriate to write a book midway in the journey. I figured like the book would be something as a a compendium at the very end of the journey of chronicling, line by line everything. But people love stories. They want a tale of giving. They want to hear about, you know, again, they want to hear about the struggles that other people went through that would have broken others. They want to hear about the blood, the war, and the gore, but not to dwell on the ugliness of it, but just to say, you know what, in those dark moments in the valley, someone had faith and it carried them through. But that faith and action carried them through. Um, those that's what I feel is necessary to share, and to share that everyone that this is possible. That someone like all of us who consume tons and tons of books, tons of personal development, say, you know what, it's time for us to share our story as well. Let's stop being spectators to the theater of life and jump on stage and perform. Because a book could propel you there, right?
You
Has
know, one thing I found that people get, yeah. So that's another thing. People, books are very personal. The selection of a book, and often people will give another a book, the book that impacted them, and it may be more a reflection of how little they've actually learned the person they're giving the piece of content to. I get books all the time that are, you know, it's like so there's an interesting, yeah, it's interesting. Is it ooh, this hugging thorns, there's an interesting paradox within this because it's like sometimes a hug is not enough. It's a fucking thorn right in the ass because it's like I love the title I hope there's some pain and
got to do out.
I hope there's some, yeah, I hope there's some vice in not, more like, oomph, like, because like a gut punch, because I just had this realization in this conversation. Uh, I could get a hug when I need a thorn. I could get a hug when I need a thorn, and I can't just be it. I personally have been in a seasons, the seasons where it was one or the other. I was only giving hugs or only giving thorns. And those extremes are not are were reflections of when I was not operating at the in the at the within the through the what insert whatever, so yeah. Right now I ooh, I like it too because it's figuring out, is it is the hug and the thorn like horizontal? Is it vertical? Is it is it do they are they is this a rotating like an atom?
I look, I'm looking,
Is it rotating?
looking from all angles, right? I look from the top down. I look from like what would Jesus do, right? The guy who literally was given a crown of thorns. They say, "Oh, they call you king," so they crowned him, right? And he wore that with humility and grace, right? And he embraced the suffering, knowing that it was the price to pay for the world's salvation.
Well, and if he's throwing tables and calling out authorities, their perception of whatever that thing is, that anomalous novelty leading to angst is, their hugs have not been accepted by, the thorns. Like he is a thorn. He's a thorn in the side of
The establishment
this.
of the
Yeah, the bureau. Yeah. The corrupt.
and what do you think we need now? We need change makers. We need people who are going to shake the halls of corruption, whether they be in justice or a lot of institutionalized religions, right? People who have all these followers and they think that that makes you godly. You're still human.
What's a hug without an accepting participant? It's a black hole. It's a sinkhole.
It's assault.
So they just made a circle, right? It's a what? What'd you?
fault. An unwanted you don't want it, right? It's not welcome, right? But a lot of times we hug people who hurt us. The more, hey, let me give you more love, right? And maybe that'll be the way to get you less thorny. And the more you hug them, the more thorny they get, the more bitey, sarcastic, or whatnot, and attacking with words. So the more you try to give to someone, the more you realize you feel empty. So that's where it's time to
Mm.
off or adjust how you love somebody. And when people say things like love from a distance, maybe that's appropriate. Maybe it's appropriate to just leave blog content, write a letter every so often to a loved one and say, look, this is how I'm going to stay connected with you until things get less thorny. Because I don't want to get cut off. Everyone sits there and says, well, just cut people out of your life. I'm like, that's hard. You got to be very cold to just immediately, unless it's for safety or for alignment. But sometimes they call them family, and you still want to see them every so often. So to cut somebody off just cold and say like this is a dead part of the tree, it might be necessary, but other times I would welcome, especially the time of year.
Well, we may not have the resources, the tools, the training, and the practice at that level of at that level of suffering, at that level to work through whatever that challenge is. Where does learning? So that's my final question for today's beginning of this blossoming. Excited to get the book and we can go through it when it's out. Where does learning come into this, or doesn't?
Learning doesn't stop. When when I went to college, I'm like, oh, is learning going to stop once you get the degree? And then I knew the whole time I'm like, I'm learning more outside of school, and now people are learning in too much. I think I think if it was like the Garden of Eden, we've been feasting on the tree of knowledge of good and evil too much, and we're engorged. So, you know, it's not stopping, but it's more like you said earlier about your wonderful example of like, stopping gorging yourself with this information and overstuffing yourself without like processing it, without putting it out into the field, into some project, into an endeavor that can bear fruit of its own, rather than just consuming. We were we were created to create. So this information that we're here to share, it needs to be a tool. It can be consumption, but again, if that's all you want from it to enjoy it, please do. But also share it with others, lessons, reflections, and how that makes you feel in your own way of which thorns you must embrace and which ones you must let go of.
Here's a quote. To be sure, I am a forest and a night of dark trees, but he who is not afraid of my darkness will find banks full of roses under my cypresses. And even the little God may he find, who is dearest to maidens. Beside the well lieth he quietly, with closed eyes. Verily, in broad daylight did he fall asleep. The sluggard, had he perhaps chased butterflies too much? Can't wait to get the book. Demetri, thank you for sharing some tales of giving and giving our listeners um, some space to see you in your journey.
Thank you, Jane. I appreciate the openness and the willingness to explore new fields of possibility.
If you're listening to this podcast, go subscribe to the Relief Podcast and leave us a review on the Culture Runners Podcast. It's how we grow our show, the platform to bring you meaningful conversations and new insights. And pick up the book, which or follow along as it'll be out very soon, I believe, in in
Uh,
the beginning of the year. Yeah.
oh, definitely by the end of the year, I want to start taking pre-orders, and then the idea would be to build a community around that so that people can share their thorns and how we can hug them as a community.
Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time.